Today's guest is Tamsin Barber, who I'm so excited to introduce you to. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, today we get the privilege of learning about your story and walking us through your world in terms of your sport. So take us right back, right to the very beginning.
Gosh.
Did you grow up in a sporty family? What was life like for you growing up?
So I'm actually an only child, so it was all about me, obviously. And I guess I love sport from the day I could sort of stand on 2 feet. And Mum obviously saw that and threw me into every sport under the sun. And I just sort of took them all on and enjoyed it, and it was just a love from the outset. So I think from a young age, back then, we're talking a little while ago, there wasn't really rugby around for girls. So I played hockey, tennis, lacrosse. I was a track runner. I also did netball and amongst other things too. So when I was at school, the main sports that you could do, I was doing all of them. And then outside of it, I was doing other sports. I think Mum was driving me every day to 3 different sports. I'd go to tennis, then to swimming, then back to track. So I was always very sort of sporty and athletic, and I seemed to be pretty fast from a young age, which was quite cool, which sort of helped me within all my sports, I suppose. I think one thing that I really did was I spread myself so thin. So I did do every sport probably up until the age of about 16, which obviously doesn't seem that old, but nowadays in the grand scheme of things, you've got 16-year-olds that are debuting for the Super W. So, I mean, I was doing swimming, netball for state, I was playing rounders for England, I was playing lacrosse for England, I was running track for county, I was doing it all, which was great at the time, but now probably looking back at it, I probably wish I'd maybe just picked one and then potentially gone down a different career path. But saying that, I've always loved every sport, and I enjoy just being in that team environment. Most sports I've done have always been team-based sports. Being around sort of your mates and being able to enjoy that side of things is something that I've always got such a big thrill out of. So then I didn't actually pick up rugby until, I think it was, we randomly got asked, like at school, if we wanted to be part of this sevens team. And we're like, oh, what's that sort of thing? No idea. And they're like, oh, we've got a tournament coming up. Like, just throw yourselves in, we'll put a team in and you girls can play. So I think I was 16 at the time, and I had some of my mates come, and I think we went to a training session, and honestly, it was the worst thing I've ever done. We were horrendous. We couldn't catch a ball, no idea how to pass it, tackling it. We just threw ourselves at each other. But it was a good laugh, and I remember my first game, we went to this tournament back in London called the Roslyn Park Sevens, which was a huge tournament for boys, and I think it was one of the first year the girls have been able to sort of participate. And we had this team of, it was all hockey players, we were all good mates, fast, like bit strong. Some of us were slightly smaller than others, but we sort of gave it a good crack. And I remember getting the ball, and I just head down and just ran, and then scored this try, and I was like, oh, wow, like that feeling was unreal. And then I'd never got, and I played every sport, but the feeling that I got from that was just like nothing else. And I was like, I've got to do this sport. Like, I love it. But the opportunities weren't huge at that time. So we had another, I think, 2 or 3 tournaments. We managed to make it to like the championship state tournament after that. And I think it was my second tournament, and I got player of the tournament for that one, which was really cool. It was one of the professional or England rugby players at the time. She selected one of the people from the tournament, and I was the one that got selected. I remember she was like, oh, I recognised you because, or I remembered you because I used to wear odd boots. I had 2 of the same boots but different colours. So she was like, oh yeah, the girl with the red and white boots, she's the one. I was like, okay, that's cool. So, and then from that, it just sort of grew, but unfortunately the opportunities weren't really there. So when I went to uni, obviously I loved sport. I went to uni for sport. I was doing a sports degree, and wanted to be part of a team again and get around that sort of culture and that environment. And I wasn't sure if rugby was it, because I'd only played sevens. So at uni, it was all of a sudden 15s. I was like, wow, that's a lot of players, like they're big girls. I was like, oh, I'm not sure if that's really me. And I was quite nervous, to be fair. So I just threw myself back into hockey, which I didn't actually really enjoy at all. I was really there for the social. And we had great fun, and I did that for 2 years. And then I came back to London for my internship year. And I was like, oh, I hate hockey. Like, why am I playing hockey? Like, just get yourself involved in the rugby. So I ended up going back to uni, and I signed for Bath Ladies, which wasn't the university team, it was the championship team. And I'd never played a game of 15s in my life, hadn't actually played rugby in probably 2-3 years. And they threw me in the centres, and I was like, I have no idea what position this is. And I just get the ball and run. I was like, okay, sweet.
I know how to do
I
that.
can do that one. I can do that one. And literally from that game onwards, I think I scored 3 tries, and I was just like, this is...
There it is.
This is what I want to do. Yeah, I was like, this is it. So I had a great season that year. It was probably one of the best seasons ever. Just, I mean, it was pretty scrappy rugby, and it wasn't anything pretty, but like getting involved again and being around that culture and the family aspect that you get from rugby. I know you get it in all other sports too, but when you're in that environment, you suddenly just got this whole new family that are there for you and support you, and you just have such a great time with it. So that was really cool. Managed to, we ended up playing some sevens tournaments at the end of the year, and I got selected for the GB. It was called the University Sevens. So it was like a pathway to the elite program. So I played in that with some of my friends, which was really good fun. And then I was like, oh, this is cool. Like maybe there's actually a pathway for potentially a career or something, but still wasn't too sort of sure on what it was. And then I was going back home to London. So I was like, oh, I need to find a club. Like, who do I play for? What's a good team? And my local club, which was Richmond Rugby Club at the time, were like the reigning Premiership champions. So I was like, okay, well, I'll go there, but I'm still not like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've literally just like been given the ball and told to run, so I've got no idea about anything else. And they're like, no, just go. Like they've got a couple of teams, like you'll still get game time. And I remember they had a new coach that season, and I came in, bearing in mind I'd only really played wing or fullback. So as that position is, you just literally catch the ball and run with it, right? I got thrown in at 10 at 5'8", which is like the ball player, main position in the backs that dictates the whole play, kicks the ball, like distributes it, makes the decisions on the plays. I was like, okay, what do I do now? But the coach was like, no, I just see something in you, like there's something there, you've got potential, I want to give you this role. I really don't think this is for me, but we'll give it a crack. And at the time, the team was going through a transition of players leaving clubs because Harlequins Ladies Rugby Club had just set up, which is actually my home club that I've always supported, because quite a few of my friends from school were in the academy and went through the system there. So a load of the girls had gone over there, but some key ones had stayed. One of them in particular, Abby, she was part of the England programme for years. She'd been in it since she was 16, I think, and she was probably like 6-7 years older than me. And she was the 10, she was that position. So she sort of took me under her wing a little bit and guided me and gave me advice and helped me sort of work my way through it. And I ended up loving it. Like I learnt so much just in that short space of time. And then I was like, right, this is great, but I don't think 10's my position. I'm still adamant that I'm not a 10, mainly because I just like to run with the ball, and 10s aren't really supposed to run too much with the ball. So that was an incredible season, and going in not knowing anyone was pretty tough. I'm come across quite confident and extroverted, but not knowing anyone there or having any sort of support was a tricky one. But in any rugby team that I've ever gone into, even more recently with Rebels, was the same. Like, you just it's open arms, and you get welcomed in like you're part of the family straight away. So I did that, and then I had 2 seasons there, and I had a fair few injuries with my foot, and I was out for sort of on and off around sort of 12 to 18 months. And I was in and out of the England Sevens development programme, training with them, and then getting injured, and sort of almost getting there and then not getting there, and not quite pushing through. To be honest, at the time, I was young. I probably wasn't pushing myself to the degree that I needed to, and I wasn't really in the right mindset for top high performance. I don't think I understood it or knew what really it took to be in that environment. I thought, I can run with the ball, I'll be all good. And then they throw you into doing like fitness tests, and I'm dying on the side.
Yeah, this is another level.
Literally like a whole new level. So I was like, I was at a point where I could continue on and sort of plod along, maybe buy a house back home and settle down and this, that and the other, or potentially just go do something a bit crazy and try something new, which was come to Australia. So I was like, okay, Mum, I'm going to Australia. She was like, pardon? I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go for a year and see what it's like. And I was adamant that I would never stay there longer than 12 months because I loved home, and I still do. And I was very much a home girl and love London, love Surrey where I live, and I'd always seen and envisioned that was like where I would finish up and sort of settle down and whatnot. And I came out, and when did we come out? In the January of 2019. So it was summertime, and my gosh, I could not deal with the heat.
Australian summer.
It was so hot. I would step outside in shorts, a vest, like slides, and I'd be just dripping. I was like, this is not normal. I can't deal with it. But then quickly adapted, and I had no intentions of playing any sport out here. I literally had come out just to travel, enjoy it, see a bit of the world, and then head back home. And I was out here for 4 weeks, and I was like, no, I want to stay another year. So straight away I was like, okay, how do I do that? Someone help me. So I was on a working holiday visa, and you could get a second year quite easily just by, well, I say easily, you had to do your farm work. So I did do farm work, sort of.
What did you do?
It's classified as restoration work, so it falls under that clause. Don't know if I'll get in trouble for this, but there's an island in Queensland, Great Keppel Island, off of Rockhampton, and it had been hit by a cyclone for 2 years, so there was loads of damage to it, and technically you could go work on the island and do restoration work. I was making beds, but it was helping me, helping them. So I lived on that island for 3 months, which was crazy because at the time I wasn't even running. I'd just come back from my foot surgery, and I was in pretty poor shape. Like, I was probably at my worst that I'd ever been, not really that motivated, and was just sort of plodding along with life. And going to this island, it just stripped everything back. So there's no Wi-Fi, there's no TVs. Like, I had my phone, but I couldn't really use it. Like, I'm literally on an island there's not even roads. Like, it's just tracks. It's like there was one place that you could eat, but we got fed through the kitchen. And to get to the different beaches or parts of the island, you just had to walk. So there was like 17 beaches on the island, and like to get to one, it's probably one or two, they're like 20 minutes, but like most of them it's like a 3-hour walk or like a 4-hour trek, or you can walk from one side of the island to the other in the day, but then you have to head straight back because there's no light. So you're just like, if it gets dark, you're literally being guided by the moon, which is pretty epic. Like, I would never have thought I'd ever experienced something like that. And it sort of really brought me back to everything and regrounded me. And I actually learned to run again on the island, which was really cool. Running on the sand, like through the bush, and just readapting to what I knew before. And then coming off the island, I was like, okay, well, I'm in shape now. Like, I'd managed to somehow get into good shape. I don't really know how, because we scrapped together a few random bits to make a little gym, and we were doing beach sessions and running through the island and stuff. And when I came back to Sydney, I was like, oh, well, I need to work. Like, what am I going to do? Sent out a load of feelers for some jobs and just to some contacts that I'd been given. And coincidentally, one of them was the head coach for Waratahs Women. So he messaged back and said, oh, we'd love you to come to training. I was like, oh, no, I wasn't talking about training.
Not really looking to play here.
No, I can't run properly. I just want a job.
However, I'm very fit at the moment.
Yeah. And he was like, no, come down. And I was like, oh, okay, like, I'll come have a look. So I headed down, and, like, it was great. Like, the setup was really cool, and he was really lovely. Like, he did a lot for me when I first came out here, supported me heavily, and really helped me sort of get on my own 2 feet. And ended up actually giving me a job too, which was fantastic, at the rugby club. So also worked hand in hand.
That's worked out very well for them, hasn't
it?
Yeah.
They got a player, a general manager, and then also I played for the local club. So I said, well, I'll come to training, but I'm not sure what I can do. Like, I've barely run more than 20 minutes, so you're just going to have to bear with me. And went down to training and just loved it. Like, straight as soon as you get straight back in it, it's so hard not to just
lives in there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just all of a sudden it's back out, and you're like, okay, I can't not do it.
Yep.
It's too inviting, and had a really fun season that season. I didn't play heaps. I played a fair bit towards the end of the season, and then I managed to get picked up for the Aeon 7 series, which they used to have, which I loved. It's a shame they actually don't do it anymore, because it was so much fun. And I think it was in one of our games against one of the other teams. Their coach was like the head coach for UTS Sevens. And again, I got put in this team and didn't really know anyone, but soon just found like just the best mates ever. Like, we had such a good time. We trained, I think our games were it was over like a 3-month period, and we travelled, like, I got to travel all around Australia, like to Adelaide, I'd never been, Melbourne, Queensland, where else did we go? All over. And had such a fun season with them. Then we actually had an incredible team as well. So I was really fortunate, again, that I got put part of this squad that had, I think now there's 4 of them are Wallaroos, 5 of them are Aussie Sevens full-time contract players. One of them's a State of Origin and Roosters and para player. 2 others are para players as well. So, like, it was, but we were all so young at the time. So we were all just sort of coming up and starting our journey, and it was actually so much fun. We had such a good time, and then from that I went into the 15 season again and was like, oh, well, what's the next sort of thing? Super W's on the cards maybe. And I actually got injured during the 7 series, which I hadn't really realised. And then I basically slipped 2 discs in my neck. So I had to take probably 6 months out, where I was then actually coaching the girls instead, which I really enjoyed and loved it. But obviously it was itching to get back out on the field, because it's just so hard when you're sat on the sideline. And also when you're coaching, it's like, oh, you just want to be there, like being able to like actually help on the field rather than just actually trying to give them advice. So got stung with that one that year, and then the following year I actually got picked up for Brumbies. So I was training down in Brumbies, but I was still living in Sydney, so I was driving sort of 3 times a week, back and forth, so 3 hours down, train, 3 hours back.
3 times a week that was happening?
Yeah.
Wow, okay, that's a huge commitment.
It was, but that's the thing, at the time, that's what you've got to sort of do to be able to progress and maybe make it in the team. And they were great, to be fair. They understood, and work that I was doing at the time were really good, and let me just work half days on those days, and then I'd travel down at lunchtime and then get back at about midnight after the training session. So I did that for the whole of pre-season, and then the week, I think it was like 2 weeks before the season was supposed to kick off, I played in a club game and I dislocated my shoulder, and I was gutted, and I knew straight away that it was done. So then I missed out on that season. So I didn't actually play that year. Rehab back really quickly because I was like, I want to get back out there, like get me back on the field, and started playing club again back at East in Sydney, and then randomly got picked up for NRLW. Caelan Ponga's dad was at one of our games, and he was the recruiter for Newcastle Knights. So he came up to me after the game and was like, oh, we'd be interested to sign you up for the NRLW season. I was like, I don't know anything about league. It's like repeated cycle. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll give it a crack.
There is such a theme of, I'll just figure out the next step. I don't know I'm fully equipped, but I'm willing to have a go. There is such a theme of that throughout what you've shared so far.
Yeah, literally. I think that's probably life, to be honest. I don't really know what I'm doing half the time, but I'll always give it a crack. I think you got to give it a go. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Yeah. So, I sat down with him literally the next day, had coffee, spoke to him about it, what it looked like, and it was our off season. I wasn't contracted or doing anything with anyone else, and they were offering money and accommodation and things that we didn't really get offered in rugby. So I was like, yeah, why not?
Sounds like a great deal.
Yeah, go live in a different city for a couple of months and see what it's like. So I think I had maybe 6 or 7 weeks to get fit because the fitness was so different, and quickly learn or understand the game to an extent. And he was great, to be fair. They gave us like extra training and had people down in Sydney that were doing sort of specialised stuff with me, and I was trying to get fit too, so that was all fun. And then went into camp and into pre-season, but we had a really quick pre-season because that year, this is 2 years ago, 2022, was the year where they'd had 2 seasons in 1 year because of COVID. So we had a 3-week pre-season.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is very quick.
Yeah. It was also because they didn't, if it was any longer, they'd had to pay us more. So
right, okay.
They were like, well, we only want to pay you for 3 weeks and then for the 7-week season. So, or was it longer than that? 8 weeks? Something like that.
Is that inevitably setting people to come in underdone?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think obviously the girls who were in the system prior, they'd had the season in January. They'd then had State of Origin, but then there'd been loads of time. Well, there was Harvey Norman's, I think, potentially in that other interim time, but a 3-week season to prepare a team that was brand new, any team, to gel together, to get up to the level of fitness that you need to do, skill level, understanding of one another in terms of how you play together is really hard.
You barely even get out of the stage of just getting to know each other's names and things like that, let alone connecting, 100%. Being fit, starting to get to know each other, how we play. That's so challenging.
And I'm so useless with names, so I was like, okay, I'll just try. If I don't know your name, I'll be like, you right, mate? Yeah.
Let alone needing to be able to perform together, and then expectations of you at that level. Oh,
and the jump of the level from union to league in terms of professionalism and expectations and the level of intensity is second to none. Like, it's such a huge jump at the moment. I think just because of the money that there is involved in it and the backing from the men's programme, there's so much more put into it that the expectation is so much higher. So coming in as a player who's never played the game, and I've suddenly been given this contract, and there's all these girls who are like played for years and they've got this, and they're like, I was coming in thinking like, they're going to look at me being like, who is this person? Like, why is she in the squad? How did she get contract over blah, blah, blah. But again, how sport is, it's just open arms. Like, I walked in and never once did I feel like I wasn't accepted, or like I shouldn't be there, or I was sort of underappreciated because I didn't know the game or the sport. If anything, the girls that were there, and they were our team that we got brought in was just a phenomenal team. Like, it was star-studded as well. So it's like, oh wow, I'll just stand over here and just observe. But they were incredible. Like Millie Boyle, Yasmin Clydesdale, Tamika Upton. Like, that's just a few names of some ridiculous players who would just take you under their wing, like you were their mate for however long, and like just help you develop and learn the game and understand what you needed to do, and not put pressure on you with it. Just let you do what you needed to do and evolve and grow as a player and develop and try and get the best out of you, which was just so sort of breathtakingly. It was so nice to be in that environment and have that sort of feeling around, like you are appreciated, and whatever your experience is, you can give something to us as much as we can give to you. So yeah, we literally had 3 weeks, and we were a brand new squad. They'd literally I think we'd kept maybe 3 or 4 players from the January season, and then everyone else had just been brought in, which was pretty cool, but also really scary, because it was like, we've got 3 weeks to gel, and then we're literally straight into the season. So it was intense, but the level, I loved it. Like, I loved being involved in that sort of environment, feeling like you actually were a professional sports athlete. Like, for the first time, it was like so refreshing. You had all the equipment, you had all the facilities, the same as the men. You used exactly what they used. You had all of the staff. Like, we had 5 physios, we had 2 or 3 S&Cs. The men's S&Cs were helping us. The men's head coaches, the men players, like, they come to our training, do clinics with us. It was so cool to sort of experience it and be involved in that. And then we went on to win it, which was pretty cool. So that experience, every week that we played, it was just another new, like, cool, unbelievable experience. And then when we got to the grand final, being at a core stadium with like 55,000 people there for our game, before the men's game, was unreal. Like, it was just unreal. And like, when we were in the sheds down underneath, and we were next to the Penrith Panthers team, and like, we walked through and they were all there, and it was just like, this is so cool. Like, how is this, like, how are we here? Like, this is great. Like, it actually is coming together. So had that experience, which was fantastic. And then it was at the time where the system wasn't really doing dual contracts. It was just the one-off contracts, and then you'd renew it the following season. So we were all out of contract, and they were just negotiating our CBA, and it took, I think we finished, the grand final was the first weekend of October, and then the CBA was supposed to be done by November. It didn't get done till May.
That's very wishful thinking,
yeah.
isn't it?
It really was. So we were all in limbo, and at the potential of, if we went into the off-season and played in the off-season comp, which was the Harveys, if you got injured, you potentially wouldn't get your contract renewed, or you wouldn't be offered another contract. But obviously, because I hadn't really played, I wasn't a big name, and I wasn't really anyone. So I knew, and also I wanted to learn the game and grow my skills. I knew I had to play, and I wanted to play. So went into the off-season and played for South Sydney Rabbitohs back in Sydney, where I was living, and was really enjoying it, learning lots, and taking what I'd learnt from that experience into this one, which was pretty cool. And then I think we played maybe 4 or 5 games, and then we were up against the Roosters, and in the first 2 minutes of the game, I broke my shoulder. So I made the first hit. It was the first tackle I made, and I knew instantly it was not good. So unfortunately, I went down, and then it was also dislocated. So I'd actually broken the bone at this point off of the ball and socket, which was a lot worse than just a dislocation. But fortunately, my my surgeon that had done my previous surgery was a good friend of mine. And as soon as I'd sort of got the diagnosis and the scans done. Literally within 2 days I was in surgery and had it fixed, which was fantastic. Obviously really hard to take at the time, and he tried to get me in as quickly as possible to see if I could get back for the season that was coming up. However, it wasn't really probably going to be possible because I needed to take the time to actually rehab it back properly this time and not rush it, and sort of get myself properly strong and fit again, and actually take my time with it. So unfortunately that year, which was last year, it was just over 12 months ago, so March in 2023, I had the surgery, and they fixed me up and got my rehab done and got strong again. And it took its toll because it was like, oh, I've been hit again and I'm going to miss another season. And
this is from a mental perspective, right?
Yeah, massively. I think injuries are hard as they are, just because physically you can't do something, right? Like I'm in a sling for 8 weeks with not being able to move my arm. Not being able to wash my hair is the hardest thing.
You don't realise until there's a hand or a finger or an arm or a shoulder.
I would low-key always go for a lower limb injury over an arm or a shoulder, or something that like takes one of your arms out, 'cause it's so frustrating.
Yeah, it's like blow drying your hair, brushing, anything.
Trying
like
to put
when
it
your
up,
arm has to go up.
Can't put your hair up with one hand. It's like literally impossible. So I looked quite dishevelled for a few weeks, but so the physical side of things is always tough, but you sort of get over that pretty quick, and you manage and you adapt and stuff. But mentally, and I think because, not that I'm old, but I'm getting older, later into my career, I was like, oh, it's another one. Is there potential for me to maybe just give it all up? But like, I don't want to do that yet. I know I'm not there yet, and I know when I will be there, I will make that decision and it'll be the right time. But I was like, I can't do that yet. So then to have to go through the rehab and do that, and the start of it is so slow and it's so mundane, and it's like you just want to be back doing everything and you can't, and you want to push but you also know you shouldn't. It does take its toll, and it does make it tough to also see what's next and where you can potentially go, especially when the prospect of that contract had gone. You sort of think, okay, well, where am I going now? What's the next thing that I'm going to be able to focus on and drive towards and see what I can do? And I spoke with my manager about it, and we both sort of said, well, actually, the coming back to rugby would actually be quite a good sort of option for you, because it's less demanding on the body. You can sort of ease your way back into it. It's not as intense in terms of like what they're going to ask of you. So he set some feelers out, and Rebels came back, which was really cool. And I'd sort of mentioned to him, I was like, I'd actually really be keen to play for them if that was an option. And they were pretty excited, and I was really excited. I came down for a weekend, met some of the girls and came to training just before Christmas, and just loved it. Like, I, again, knew no one, had no idea about I didn't really even know the coaches, didn't know of them, so was quite nervous in that sense, and coming in again being like, oh, well, where have you been? Who are you?
Yep.
You've not been around for 3 years, so that was a bit daunting. But literally, I think as soon as we were at the car park and we were crossing the road, and Tiara T, one of the girls, she's part of the Wallaroos program, was behind us, and she came up to me and said hi and introduced herself, and straight away just made me feel at ease, and allowed me to just like all the nerves go, and just go and enjoy that session and be part of the team and see if I liked it and if they liked me. And then it sort of kicked off from there. So then I came down to Rebels in January and haven't been back since.
And why is that? Tell us a little more.
Oh, well, it's Melbourne, actually. I love it. I loved the way that it's sort of a bit of home and Australia. That's how I sort of perceive it. You got the city, you got everything that's going on, you got all the sport that's around, and it's so central. I love that. And then just being part of the team, like the girls have been fantastic. I've made some really great friends, like lifelong friends, and they're people that I never even knew like 5 months ago, which is amazing. And it's just been a place where I felt like I can settle down and actually see, like, yeah, this is where I sort of see myself being for the foreseeable. And it's just been such a great experience, as much as it has been hard with stuff that we've had going on with the club from an outside perspective, with everything that's been in the press and the media. We as a collective were always together and didn't really let that shake us in terms of when we were at training or our performance. Yes, we didn't win many games, but we absolutely played our hearts out in every single one of them, and the team always came together regardless of what was going on. And a lot of girls had a lot of difficulties during the season because of certain things and stuff that was going on outside. So the fact that we still were so connected and so sort of as one, and I think that's just the way that it is in Melbourne. Maybe, I don't know, it just feels like that's how the environment is, and the way people are. And I feel like I've just been so fortunate since being here with everything that I've been able to do and sort of have been given. And maybe that's just luck. Mum always said I was born lucky, not rich. So maybe she's right. But yeah, it's just been such a great experience, and hopefully one that we can have again next year. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, there are so many things to touch on through this story. One of the main things, obviously, is your ability to go, I'm going to figure this out. And then things continue to open up and unfold for you in ways that have been so fulfilling and successful in a variety of ways. One of the things that you touched on that was sort of a theme, where you're arriving at new teams where it feels a bit uncomfortable and a bit uneasy at the start. I think normalising that for people is a really good thing. But also the impact of the leaders who have come toward you and taken you under their wing from a leadership perspective. This is such a demonstration of how impactful that can be when you simply go and greet someone when they arrive and bring them into your community and culture.
Yeah, I think it's massive, and I think that's what Rebels does really well. And from the outset, like I said, T came straight up to me, and then when I got in, everyone who came into the gym, who obviously knew everyone already, but I was the new girl, came up and introduced themselves to me, and it just makes you feel like, okay, cool, I'm part of the group. I'm like, everyone's happy that I'm here. It's like a nice atmosphere. It's engaging. You don't feel like you can't speak out. You don't feel like you don't have a voice. You got your people like Mel Cower, like she was phenomenal through our campaign, and the way that she even speaks and how she comes across and everything that she's done throughout her career. And I'm saying I feel old, not that she's old, but she's had a kid and she's done all of that, and then to come back and then play, like it's so inspiring to see people like that and have those girls around you that really do want the best for you, regardless of what's going on with them. Like that's the sort of environment and the atmosphere that it gives to you, and having those leaders in the squad and around you as a team. You got Mel, T, Ash, and then you got girls that come over from overseas who were also had really unbelievable experiences, and sort of they've been through other stuff that potentially our girls hadn't. Like you had a couple of girls from New Zealand, so Jamie and Crystal, their experience and knowledge also was just fantastic to learn off of. And I think that's one thing that I've always really loved within the teams that I've been in. I've really tried to engage and learn off of everyone that's in the squad, because I think everyone has a different experience and everyone has a different outlook on what they're doing and what they've had in the past. So I think if you can learn even just one thing from someone within the squad, then you're just growing your own experience and what then you can give back to the younger people that are coming through. But in saying that, actually, we had a lot of younger girls in our squad, and like I always feel like I'm 21 still, probably because I hang out with them too much. But as much as you learn from the older ones, you can learn so much from them too. Like the way that they just come in, throw themselves into it, they just get involved, they get stuck in, they don't really have too much of a fear. I think as you get older, you get more and more fearful, and you get more and more sort of closed off. And I think that's what you've really got to try and not do. If you can, if there's a door and it's potentially a tiny bit open, just go through it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does, great. Like, something amazing can come out of it. And I think that's when you're young, that's what you do. You just throw yourself in and you keep going, and whatever happens, but you just push on and push through. And definitely some of the younger girls, just their energy and their vibe and what you can sort of get from them is great too. So I think it's as much as there's the leaders in the older crew, the younger ones too are great. Like, and they're so good for your soul, like, just as a person, and like the energy and the way that they are in and around just make you feel like a bit of a kid again, which is great.
Yeah, I love it. And so what's on the cards for you for the next 12 months?
Oh, golly. Wow, that's a great question. There's a fair bit, actually. At the moment, I'm in the off season, so once you've sort of finished up the season, you've got to get your body right again. It does get a bit broken at times. So that's definitely a work on at the moment, trying to just get myself fully fit and back to where I think I should have been at the beginning of the year, but probably wasn't quite there yet. So that would be really cool to get to that point. And then in that time, I'll be training in and around Melbourne with the Vic State training at the moment, which is like one of the pathways for the Wallaroos, which is really cool. Meds runs that, and one of the pathway guys too. So we do a bit of training through that, which is fun, and potentially then has the ability to see if you've come to the point where you might even be pushed up into a squad or as a development player, or whatever might happen with the World Cup coming up next year. And you just don't know what's on the cards. If you're eligible, you're always a potential, right? So that would be pretty cool. Don't know if it would happen, but if it did, it would be pretty fantastic. So that would definitely be something I'd strive towards. It's a long shot, but it's definitely one that you got to have it in your sights. If you don't, you're playing for, I don't know what you're really playing for, but I think you got to aspire to be the best, and that would be the best if you could get into the international side. So to play in a World Cup, I think I might be able to retire after that if I did that. Although I say that, I probably wouldn't. I'd go do something else. But yeah, I think that's definitely something that I'd be looking forward to and looking towards. And obviously the Rebels, hopefully all being well, and we're able to put a team out next year, whatever that might look like, whether it's just us or whether it's part of the actual programme. That will start again back at the end of this year. So then we'll potentially start again up in January and then back into full swing of things. So
amazing. Well, given the way things have unfolded for you, I'm really excited to see what happens in the next 12 months, and wish you an injury-free, fun, enjoyable next 12 months, and let's see what's possible, hey?
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love that.
Well, thank you for joining us. Great to chat today. Look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you so much.